me and I will go with that.
So 80% you will be speaking and 20% I'll be speaking. So we'll be asking some set of questions about your expert area, topic area, and then we would want you to enlighten our participants in that subject matter area and guide them a bit.
I don't know if I can enlighten them or guide them, but I can share my experience. That I can certainly do.
I think that will be enough to give them a path pick.
So, whenever you're ready, are you ready? Are you guys recording? You want me to?
Yes.
You want to start?
Sai, you just tell me when we are going to start.
Yeah, it's recording, so please start. Yeah.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. Good evening, all the participants. Thank you so much for joining. And here we are with Sancheta. She is a founder of Sana Foundation. And if you Google about her, she is famous and she has done wonderful things. Given her age, she has achieved a lot and definitely an inspiration for younger generation like us. So I would request Sancheta to introduce yourself from your own, because it will be less anyways, whatever I say about you.
No. You are very kind. First, at the outset, thank you very much for inviting me. The idea of using technology in any sphere, whether it's in the sphere that I'm in, which is for social impact, or in business, or in any walk of life, I think can really be transformational. And that's where my passion lies. So when Sai said, will you join us? Even initially when you had your sessions, I said, I'll always be happy to be part of that in whatever little way. But life is so ironic, right? I mean, growing up, I was not at all a tech person. I was completely liberal arts, very, very far away from the world of technology. But then I think, as maybe it's destiny, maybe whatever it is, it led me to this path. And technology, to many people, seems something which is very high tech and only for super specialty engineers and the IT geeks to be involved with. But actually, that's not true. You can demystify technology and see how easy it is for people to use in various ways in whatever walk of life they choose to have. So really, that has been my journey. I mean, part of what you said is very kind and generous in your introduction. But the truth is, like every one of you, we're all trying to find our feet in this world. There are many things that I've done which have been huge disasters. And I think in the tech world, everybody is familiar with, you come up with an idea, you think it's the best in the world, and then you realize it's a disaster and it doesn't work. But that's okay. That's life. So I'm a lawyer, and I worked in the media for some time in my family business, because like many other things, I didn't know what I wanted to do right after college. And so it was like the process of elimination, right? So I did that for some time. And that's when I realized, there comes that aha moment in your life where you have to decide, what is it that you want to do? Where is it that your heart lies? And I think all of us know inside what we want to do, but often we're afraid that what if it fails, right? What if it's a disaster? So I'm no different. I wanted to take what was the cautious approach. But then I remember in 2011, I decided that, I wanted to step out of the for-profit world and get into the non-profit world. That is where I felt my interests lied. And I think a couple of things led me to that path. One was, when I was really young, I'd seen my mother take the Lifeline Express, which is like a hospital on wheels, to the tribal areas in Andhra. And I remember I took a month off from school to go and see what was happening there. And then also when I was working, we did a lot of documentaries. One of them was the impact of technology in agriculture in a place called Gulbarga, which is in the border of Karnataka. And then I remember that's when I had a discussion with my parents, the one that everybody dreads, not knowing how and what they'll say. And I said, listen, I think that my heart lies in the nonprofit world, and I will set up a nonprofit. And you guys back me for 1 year. And if I can't make it after that, then, I'll come back to work with you or whatever. I'll see what's next. And then that was a chance that I took. And then from there, there's been no looking back. I think Sana did fairly well over the years, and we raised decent money and from credible people, and who also gave us the space to make mistakes and find our own journey. So that's really how it all began for me. I mean, I'm in no position to give anybody advice. I think it's a combination of hard work and luck. You need both of them, right?
Absolutely.
So that's how Sana started, and that's how it worked for me. So I'm still figuring it out. It's not like I have everything figured out. Every day is a new battle, a new challenge. Like anybody who develops an app, you'll agree that okay, today this is a success. Tomorrow somebody else may come with something even better, and yours may become irrelevant. So you always have to be on top of your game, whatever your game is, in whichever walk and path of life. So that's really what I do in a nutshell. And Sana, actually, we work in water and sanitation, but we look at leveraging technology in the social sector. So I think there isn't enough use of technology in the non-profit world as there is in the for-profit world. Because the costs are also very high, the capital costs and the investments that go in. But I think that the advantage that has is you can get scale and you can have quality control. It's easy the metrics are very, very concise when you use technology, and you remove discretion. There's more transparency. So that's really the model that we follow, where we felt that poor people don't need poor solutions, and they should have access to the best technology that anybody in a bigger city would have. And that was really a guiding philosophy, and I think that's how we have done reasonably okay in Sana.
Great. So, ma'am, if you can please brief us more on what exactly Sana do and how does it solve the problem using technology?
So, I believe you have to, whatever you address, you have to address it at the bottom of the pyramid. And I really believe water and sanitation is the building block of anything you would want to do in anything in life. I'll give you an example. Supposing you say you want to talk about gender justice. Well, a lot of the girls drop out of school because they don't have access to a toilet. A lot of the girls are taken out from school by their parents because there is no access to running water. And invariably, it's the girls who have to go and fetch water. When you talk about ensuring livelihoods for everybody, very often, most of the population of India are daily wage earners. 5 days of diarrhea and loss of pay is all that it takes to entrap them in the cycle of poverty. So and not to mention the human dignity that is ravaged when you have to go and defecate out in the open or drink contaminated water. I've said this many times, but I really believe that nothing can be more inhuman. So this was my passion. I said, I want to work in this space. Now, as a non-profit, we are technology agnostic. I'm not the creator of any technology. But at the same time, I said, we need to find a solution that works on the ground, because I'm not the first person who said I want to work in water and sanitation. But why is it that most of the projects after, being handed over or being inaugurated, why have they very often not worked, or why have there been challenges? So I looked at it backwards. And the conclusions that we came to was, I have to look at a 360-degree solution. So when I talked about water, I said we need a water purifier. So first thing we did was we tested the water in the lab to find out what are the contaminants in the water. And then we designed an integrated solar-powered water purification station. So the water purification station is a combination of UV, RO, and membrane. And we have solar pumps that pump out of the water from whatever is a locally available source. Why do we use renewable energy? And if you remember, this is in 2011, where solar energy was still very expensive. It was cheaper to get a diesel generator than it was to install solar panels, which was still expensive. It's not the rate that it is today. Now there's a whole push towards renewable energy. But why I said, no, I need renewable energy is because if supposing we said we would just connect them with an electricity point, the truth is, in those areas, there was no power for almost 8 to 12 hours a day. So what would this water purification station do if there is no electricity? So I said, okay, we need to create an ecosystem which will work in the worst case scenario. So we put renewable energy and we put solar panels on top. And then we had the water station. Now, anybody who's familiar with water purification will say that one of the biggest challenges you face is there is a huge amount of wastage of water. So when you put it through the system, if you say you put in, say, 100 liters of untreated water, there is a good chance that between 40 liters and 60 liters of the water will go into the wastewater category. It will not be fit for drinking because we were complying with WHO standards. So we said, okay, let's take the wastewater and we will use that for the flushing in the bio-toilets. Now, why did we do bio-toilets? Right now, bio-toilets are a little more prevalent, but at that time it was not. It was largely used only by the defense forces. It's a technology that's owned by DRDO. And whether you like it or not in our country, the caste prejudices are very real. We always think it's not our job to go and clean human waste. It's not our job to clean toilets. It's somebody else's job. And I felt, no, we need a solution which respects human beings and all human lives. So that's when I said there has to be a technology solution to this problem. That what happens is very often they make septic tanks. There is no secondary waste disposal system. And then a human being has to go in to clean those septic tanks. And 90% of the tanks are not built properly. So we said, okay. Then when we found the solution, we said, okay, we will put a biodigester. A biodigester is there's a specific design that the DRDO has made, which is patented by them, and you can license that. And basically what happens is there's an inoculum of bacteria that's put into the tank, and that eats up all the human waste. So there is no human intervention that is required. So, these are small ways of using technology to give a solution which is holistic. And then at the same time, what else do we do with the technology? Most of the toilets that you visit, at least when I visit, you feel suffocated. They're like boxes. They're very hot also. So we said we must have adequate ventilation. We should have solar lights inside so that even when it's dark, if a woman is going, she's not scared. Simple things like giving access to the light switch both inside and outside, ensuring that all the fittings we had were such that nobody can pluck it and run away, because these are also going to be put in areas where there is a possibility of theft. So this is how largely we integrated technology. So what did we do? We ensured there was no wastage of water, and whatever excess water was there was put back to recharge groundwater. So you didn't waste any water, you were not dependent on energy. We ensured that we were carbon neutral, if at all. And there was no human intervention, so they didn't smell. And then lastly, which has nothing to do with technology, but which is to do with, our belief that poor people don't need poor solutions, is all our toilets look very nice. They look swanky. So you will not be, it became like a matter of pride, saying I'm happy to have these toilets. Because initially, when we would put in these projects, either in the village or in the school, 90% of them would say, and this is before your Swachh Bharat had started, 90% of them would say, give us the water, we don't want the toilets, because toilets smell. Or the question I got from many people, many donors actually, potential donors, was, why are you putting solar panels? It's so expensive. This is the middle of nowhere. Why don't you just put a diesel generator? It's 1/100th the cost. So you can do so many more projects. But just depends on what your belief is. And I was very clear. What matters is that you give a proper quality at the right price point, which is affordable and sustainable. And that's when the Google Impact Challenge came, and I put this model out there, and I got lucky and I won. And I got my first major grant from them. And you guys will agree with me. I'm sure you do a lot of pitching and a lot of your young people do a lot of pitching. And, you don't know when you get lucky. But then once you get lucky, everybody says that's the best idea. But, you're forgetting the hundreds of people who told you it's the most ridiculous idea on earth and it's a waste of money. So why I'm saying that is because we all have to do the rounds of pitching, right? And invariably we'll get a no and we'll get the door shut on our face. Don't let that change your plan. I never changed my model. I believed in what it was. I started in 2011. The Google Impact Challenge was in 2013. First 2 years, I did very little work. But I really felt that that was the right solution that would work on the ground. So, I mean, that's how it worked for me.
Amazing, ma'am, amazing. I was just continuously like hooked up in whatever you were saying, and it was all making sense inside my head. So that was beautifully explained. Thank you, ma'am. So now that you have scaled up, you have got a very good amount of experience in dealing with such problem. What is the vision of Sana Foundation? Are you going to run across the country or going international? What is the vision?
No, no, no. I believe that in this case, small is beautiful. Especially in the non-profit space, localized solutions are very good. So while I can duplicate the technology, there are various other social factors which come into play, which, unless you're from that area, you will never understand the nuance. So
Yeah.
for me, since I'm from Andhra and I live in Delhi, these are the two areas in which I think I understand how the dynamics work. I'll give you one example. When we were first identifying sites, and we would do it in partnership with the local administration, who were extremely helpful and very, very proactive. So I had, you have to have some kind of metrics. I can share it with you now. So I said, okay, I will give a priority to work with women sarpanches. I'll work in all girls schools. Like that, we had a checklist. One of the villages I won't name it, one of the villages that we identified, we realized where we located it was an area that was prone to local group wars, like in the village, local. And that project of mine failed. Now, because I'm from there, we were in a position to get it sorted out. But like this, there are 1,000 other factors which come in, especially in the space that I work in. It's not like an app that I develop on the phone and that we will have everybody use it. While the technology is very much scalable, the execution has to be localized. That's what I believe for it to work. And I never really wanted to scale up like be a catalyst to say is for others to duplicate. So in fact, the then water and sanitation, I think some of this has been used by other non-profits also and other corporates in their own way. And I think that's the way forward. I mean, I never wanted to be, I don't believe big is beautiful in this space. I am very happy that I'm nimble on my feet and it's a small organization that I can take control of. So I mean, no plans like that.
Great. Well, at least you can inspire people, so they can, if everybody start doing little thing in their own capacity, then it itself become a very big put
That's
together.
true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
We all have our part to play.
Yes, correct. So, ma'am, while implementing, like you were saying, that a solution has to be localized, which I totally agree. So, what is the biggest challenge that you face? Is it the cultural challenge, or is it also the demographical, geographical challenge as well?
Geographical, not very much, because I know that geography fairly well. I mean, even though we did work in like some of the tribal areas which are difficult to access, sometimes you don't have network there. Some of them are part of what is called the Red Corridor, but I think most of that trouble is reasonably under control. But I think the biggest challenge that we faced is how do you change mindsets, right? Because like water and sanitation, water is not a problem. Everybody now understands the importance of drinking safe water and that it can carry illness and that it's good for the child's health, and all of that is a given. So that's not something that takes a lot of convincing. But what does take convincing is the use of toilets. And that I look at a little differently. It's not like they like to go and defecate in the open. All human beings are the same, whichever family you're born in, whatever your circumstances are. But I believe that because they've had access to such horrible toilets, which always smell, like, they would always say, Acha, this place is smelling, means it must be public loose there. And they stink, there's no doubt about it. We've always felt, at least this is my reading, I could be wrong, is that you go by the lowest common denominator and you just do what you have to do and get it done with, and you mark a tick mark in your book that, okay, we've done this. That, unless you look at it as human dignity and saying it should be something that anybody would want to use. It's a public convenience. It's also investing in the health and well-being of our people. And so if you look at it like that, look at it in terms of numbers. It's the World Bank report which says, I think for $1 you invest in water and sanitation, you get a $9 return in the economy in terms of reduced healthcare costs and increased productivity. It makes good business health nonprofit sector when we do such. That was my philosophy. That it has to be something that the village will take pride in, or the school will part manifold, and we don't keep ownership in our books. I donate the entire asset becomes the property of the beneficiary, and I let them also create a revenue stream. In the village, they're allowed to sell the water, but at a very nominal cost so that their costs are covered. And then we train people from within the community, like plumbers, electricians, to come and do basic maintenance. And if you're from the community, and especially if you're a woman, there's a higher chance you will stay within the community and work for the community rather than migrate to the city. So these are the challenges that we learned over the years, and we figured out a way to make them part of the whole journey. Then people come along. It's about winning a person's trust. It may take time, but once you do, things move very fast. That's my experience.
Correct. Absolutely, ma'am. So just for our younger audience who are also looking to work into area which is for a good social cause, so how do you sustain that business model? Because you said that you move from profit to non-profit, so natural tendency is to go for a profit because they want to make it sustainable. So how do you figure it out? How would you what message do you want to pass to younger generation?
I think it's very important to be financially secure. I'm talking about like as human being. So like I am a professional, I do other things also, so I can take that risk. But I always tell anybody, unless you're financially, and you don't have to work for free. See, this is a very wrong idea that in the non-profit you have to work for the love of only humanity. You're as competitive in the for-profit world and in the non-profit world. It's just a different return on investment. In your for-profit, your return on investment is perhaps your valuation and your, nowadays, especially in the IT space, the valuations are through the sky and you're getting in capital and VC funding and all of that. In the non-profit world, there are two ways of doing it. One is a traditional non-profit, where you survive on the basis of grants and donations that come in. But then there is also a concept of setting up a social enterprise. So, which is sustainable, which helps you pay your bills, and at the same time, is something that is workable for everybody involved. In fact, I think I just read online that in the next few months, I think the stock exchange is even allowing social enterprises to get listed if they have a corpus of 5 crores. So there is adequate funding available. Like there has been a surfeit of funding available in the tech space, where all the VCs and the private equity funds have been waiting to write out checks for people with technology, not knowing which is the next big idea. Many of them right now are getting listed and have started doing well. The same way in the non-profit world, especially if you're setting up a social enterprise, there is a lot of funding that is available. So you have to do the rounds. It's no different. You will get rejected many times. Many people will think your idea is rubbish. You'll have to show strength in your core team. What is your project plan? What are your cash flows? If you want to do this on your own. Otherwise, if you want to get a job in the non-profit sector, well, to tell you the truth, right now, no job market is looking very great. I mean, they're all going through challenges, and grants come in only when companies make profit, right? That's when you give away. So that is going to be a tough space for the next few years. But if one is setting up a social enterprise, for example, if say you're working in agriculture and you're working in farming, and you're doing something in that space, is funding available. It's just a matter of developing a little bit of a thick skin, accepting some of the no's, but not quitting.
Yeah, correct. Correct. So, ma'am, are you aware of, I'm sure you must be aware of government's scheme and other private organizations who are ready to nurture or ready to fund. So would you like to share some of those platforms with our participants?
Well, which are the ones? A lot of the non-profit sector is going through what I would call a very turbulent phase right now, because regulation has become extremely stringent, as you're aware of, both in terms of funding that comes in from outside, and then our internal, various compliances, both with the Ministry of Home Affairs and Ministry of Finance, that are under huge amount of scrutiny. Some of it rightfully so. It's time to get the whole ecosystem cleaned up and above board. But which are the spaces that are giving in funds right now? Well, various state governments do have funds. Most of the social justice departments, like rural development or the environment ministry, if you go to any of their websites, they're all very clear, and most of the submissions are online. So I would say your best friend right now is Google, because you have to check them out on the internet and find them. That is how I found the Google Impact Challenge. I was Googling something, the link popped up, and I said, okay, I'll apply for this competition. What have I got to lose? And, well, I didn't lose. So that was, God was kind. So otherwise, I mean, it's not right. There is another website called Darpan, where all non-profits have to register. It's again set up by the Niti Aayog. But I would really recommend, the best way is you just have to browse through all the ministries' websites and see what are the schemes they have and see which is your area of interest. But in any space, and I must tell everybody, it's not easy to get funds. It's a nightmarish process. But if there's something you believe in, then it's not going to be easy. You have to be prepared for that, that uphill battle.
Yes. Yes, yes. That's that's the difference between just reading some random articles and reading books versus talking to someone who is actually doing this thing. Like I would quote that I read it somewhere that traveling on your own is worth reading 1,000 pages of books. I think that same applies here, that talking to someone who is actually doing it is itself worth an encyclopedia. You just get all the knowledge. So thank you, ma'am, for that. That brings me to another question. We have a large number of youth population than any country in the world, and this is my belief that Indians, we generally are better in IQ, I guess so, as compared to Western world. Yeah, yeah, and especially when it comes to mathematics and doing calculations, so we are naturally good in that thing. So, do you think there is a way that we use this latent, unutilized energy of youth while they are still studying in the college, because we do not have a culture of uh, internship into industry. Lots of students do not have that access. So can they be channelized into lots of social work? Let's take an example, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, and there are lots of similar social projects where uh, students do not expect lots of salary. They just expect an experience or certificate. So is there a way some startup can associate with them and we can just channelize them, use their brain?
Yes, of course. I mean, I agree when you say that usually we're very good at maths and science, but then I'm the exception because I was a disaster at maths and science. I was like the odd one out in India because I couldn't deal with numbers. And ironic as it may seem, I now deal with so much numbers. I pretty much handle the finance of our work and our business. But in school, I couldn't add 2 plus 2. I was like very nervous. I would always be what do I say? I got butterflies in my stomach when I saw numbers.
Well, IQ is often confused, or it is looked as a synonym of mathematics. But I think from my age and experience, I learned that IQ is more than just maths and numbers. It's usually a common sense. When you are put into a trouble, into a situation, how you get out of it. I think that's more of an IQ. So I'm sure you are good at it because you have established Sena Foundation. So yeah.
So, I agree with you. I think that the best thing for anybody, because I mean, it's great to go to college, it's great to get that degree, it gives you the confidence, and also you need a certain skill set and a background. But nothing teaches you more than real life experience of work. And I remember, like, even when I was in college, I used to sometimes go along with my parents. But otherwise, even if your parents are not working, doing any kind of work, there's nothing called small or big, because nothing teaches you more than working in the real world. When we're studying, however great your college or university is, you're so sheltered. You don't know what the real world is. The working world is so different from your universities and colleges and school that many times you're completely at sea. And the truth is, life is not fair. It's not fair, right? There is so many people. Somebody will have an advantage. Somebody will, your boss, you may have a horrible boss. You may have a good, a very kind boss. You don't know. But you have to make the most that God gives you, right? Whatever hand is dealt out, you have to make the most of that. So I think that it's the best thing to work. Even if it's a job you think you will hate, I would always say try it, because at least then you eliminated one thing. Because I mean, there may be a few people who will be very focused and know what they want to do, but invariably most people after college don't know what they want to do. So, in terms of how, and I think a lot of companies do have opportunities, but I don't think there is any formal structure unless your college itself helps you with summer internships. That I think some of the universities are doing.
Chakradhar, can you make sure that everybody is on mute? I think one of the participants are muted.
Yeah, sure. I will look into it.
Yeah, sorry, ma'am.
That's okay. Technology has its.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Is still someone. Vinay, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, you can admit him and then he's on mute.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know of any organization that formally does this, but I think a lot of universities and colleges do tie up with people and help them get internships. So I know like many of the law colleges do that. Some of the colleges do, not too many, but many of the engineering colleges do that, where they have tie-ups locally within industry and industry partnerships. And in fact, in some of your curriculum, it's mandatory, right? I think in your fourth year, one semester has to be, I think, work experience or a project or something like that.
Yeah, industry experience, yes.
Industry experience, right? So I think if you ask me, I think it should be across the spectrum, and it's not necessary that if you're engineering, you have to go only to a tech company. You may even decide to go and work with an artist, because the line between art and science and with the new education policy that's coming is slowly disappearing, right? So if you look at the American education system, you can study, say, psychology, and you can even take aeronautical science and have microbiology and have them all together and still come out as a successful person to figure out what you want to do next. So I think there's a lot that we can learn across disciplines, and I think that just gives us a different perspective. So I think it would be great, but I don't know who will help you do this. Your colleges would be the best people who would help put this together. Or maybe you can design an app. There's an idea for you. And you can connect the student with the potential, job giver.
Yeah. So talking about the idea, this brings me to another question that what are the imminent problem that you see and you believe that should be taken care of entrepreneurs who are aspiring to be impactful into social cause?
Well, I think we have a lot of money that is available, but I think a lot of people ask for, like, at least like my time, they always ask for experience. So in our case, the minimum was you have to be up and running for 3 years. And I remember the counter question I asked was, you don't expect somebody to be born with experience. Somebody needs to take a chance. And 99% of your bets will fail. As long as it fails because it's a mistake and it's not because of impropriety, it's okay. And I think that's the one thing, like in our ecosystem, the problem is we don't give people enough room to fail with dignity. And we always assume a failure is the end of the world. Well, if it was the end of the world, I wouldn't be here. Because trust me, I made many, many mistakes in my life along the way. And I was lucky that I had people who backed me through the ups and downs. Because these companies themselves have had a very checkered past, but have come out a winner. So I remember one of the first things, because I worked out of home even before, and when the Google Impact Challenge was happening, and one of the questions I was asked was like, where do you work? And I said, I work out of my home and, all of that. And I remember I was a little anxious saying that, is that going to be a problem? And I remember they said, when we started Google, we started out of a garage. Now, why I felt that I was unsure is because before that, when I'd met another corporate who was fairly well known, they said, how can you not work in an office? You need the office atmosphere. And I said, no, I work out of home. I want to keep my burn rate low. I don't want an office. I don't feel the need for that. My computer is my office. They didn't appreciate that. Now, I mean, I just believed in myself, and I was very lucky that my parents were always there saying, you go and do what you want. And if you make a mistake, it's okay. We're there for you. But I had that luxury that if I failed, it was not going to be the end of the world. But I think that's what we don't give enough room to for everybody in this space. And not just in the technologies, in any startup, you're developing an app, we don't give enough money and resources in research and development, and everybody has this herd mentality. So if everybody is doing, fintech, so everybody will run to that. If everybody is doing, all people will want to put in all their money there. But if you really feel that you want to back an innovator and a startup and a new idea, chances are you may go wrong very often, but then that's how you'll get the next big idea. So I think the whole ecosystem is still also very young in India. It's very new. It's been there for, you can say, 10, 15 years, perhaps, that the startup space has started to make some, perhaps it started when the internet boom happened, with the first wave of internet, and then the dot-com, thing, it suddenly burst, if you remember, that bubble burst, and then a lot of people went bust. Then again, it picked up. So these are cycles. But in India, this is one thing I strongly feel is we don't give people enough space to fail, and that has to change. That doesn't happen in America. That doesn't happen in Silicon Valley. That doesn't happen in any of those spaces because so many people fail. They file for bankruptcy. They, make a complete mess. They lose everything, and then they start all over again. And nobody holds that against them. They admire a person's ability to stand up after disaster. That's what I do as well. But that is a long road ahead, that, we give people that space, which right now is very limited. Right?
So what allows to create that space? Is that the money, or is it also the mindset, the infrastructure?
It's not just the money. Money is one part. It's also to do with us as a society and as a people. Like the way like parents want their kids to get 99% and only get into the top one college and only do this. I can understand that to some extent because competition is so high, stakes are very high. And, you want the next generation to make it. You want what's best for your children or grandchildren or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think we need to strike that balance. I'm not saying that, don't strive for excellence. And, who wants to fail? Everybody wants to succeed.
Yeah.
But the funding system, the regulatory mechanisms, and the societal construct in which we are, none of them allow a human being to fail with dignity. I mean, it's only now that you have the NCLT and you have some of the new act, I'm forgetting the name, that was passed, where if you want to wind down a company, it's become simpler. But otherwise, the compliances and regulation are so stringent that it's humiliating for an entrepreneur to go through that process. Dealing with the banks, dealing with all of them, it's a very, very unpleasant experience. So what are you doing? You are not incentivizing a risk taker. You want everybody then to be conventional. Then you cannot have innovation. Innovation is possible only when you give room for failure. Otherwise, forget about innovation. You won't have innovation. So that is something that I think even policymakers are beginning to understand, and you're seeing some of the changes in policy. And you're seeing some of that in the kind of funding that is available, because now many of them do have that experience. But it's a learning curve for everybody, right? I mean, nobody likes to lose money. But at the same time, you have to understand that these are high risk, high reward games. So, you can't always get bullseye. It's not possible.
Yes, yes. One thing I would like to add, that's what I think, you can correct me. I think if we add a layer of social security to the general masses, then I think it gives lots of freedom. Because I myself is coming from a tier 3 city, I would guess. It's a small town close to Varanasi. So there, the biggest fear is that, first of all, everybody wants to save their livelihood.
Yes.
And yeah, so like the biggest expenditure is medical. So no matter how much money one has saved, it can just go like this. So yeah, so I think it should come down from the policymaker that everybody is socially secured like it's in Europe.
Yeah.
And yeah, that would give us some free hand.
I couldn't agree with you more, because, like, if you're worried about food on the table or a roof over your head and your basic needs of education and healthcare, then you can't really expect somebody to be taking a risk. You'll want them to be stable and ensure that all that is taken care of. So, yes, that is the job of the state, to ensure that, basic human needs are met. But I think these are so many challenges, because we're such a large population. Like you said, we have one of the largest populations under the age of 40. It can be a demographic, dividend, but it can also be a demographic disaster, because, we have a large working population, and how do you ensure there's enough work for all of them to be productively engaged? And this is a challenge for all policymakers, whatever they may say. It's not so easy to solve overnight. But I agree with you that until and unless you ensure that safety net is there, it's not easy to go and take those risks. You can't expect a person to go and innovate and do something new or unconventional when their life itself is hanging by a thread. I mean, it's just not, it's not realistic. It can't happen. So I agree with you that the social security net is very important across the board. It should be accessible.
Correct. There is one thing I feel good about our country is that, and it's an achievement which is not often recognized at the global platform, that in spite of so many challenges and hostility across our neighborhood, uh, there is still a platform for opportunity. Like you yourself is an example, and like I was saying that I'm coming from a tier 3 city, but if people like us have even if a little bit of will, and they come to cities like Delhi, Mumbai, or because our country is also full of experts who have real life experiences. So and these experts are easily accessible in metro cities. So we are lucky in a sense that we do not have to run outside our country. We can find everything inside the country. I think on a macro level, what's missing is perhaps we are not working as a one unit. We are just going here and there. If we start working as a one unit, I think we are already a global power. So yeah, it's just hidden. Nobody is realizing, but we have all the tools.
Yes,
So
I agree.
yeah. So having said that, uh, bringing the same thought to a social impact community, all the people who are running NGO or who are running organizations which are working for social causes, do you think that they are themselves synchronized enough, or they all are working as a lone wolf?
No, they're not synchronized enough at all. Everybody's pretty much working in silos in their own space. And I agree with you that together you'll have many more resources available, shared experiences. So I'll give you one example. So one of my funders over the years, up until recently, was a company called Oracle. They're a tech company, and they were working with some of them. Ever since they were working with nonprofits in India, they were working with us, and among other than us, various other organizations. And every year they would have like an offsite for all the organizations where we would all meet in one of the cities. So either Delhi, Bombay, Hyderabad, Chennai, whatever. I mean, that would be figured out. And that was the time when you would get to meet people working in the same sector, sometimes in related fields, sometimes in completely unrelated fields, and see if there's a possibility of any synergy or any kind of sharing of ideas and exchanging best practices or whatever it is that you think that can help the other person. Because I don't think you should look at the other person as competition. While in a sense you may be competition because you're all vying for the same pie of funding, but you have strength when you come together, because then you have that much more of a bandwidth of talent that one can access, right? It's like the same thing in companies, right? Two companies working in the same space, why do they sometimes go for a merger? Because they feel that together they have that much more strength. So it's a matter of perspective. Some will look at another person and say, okay, they're my competitor. And some will look at them saying, okay, you know what? We have so much of synergy, let's come together. And then there's so much more that one can do. But I agree with you that there isn't enough synergy. There is practically no synergy. And pretty much everybody does their own, work and style of functioning. But right now also, I think it's also now because everybody's being a little more cautious because the regulations have become now very stringent. And if somebody has a lapse on their part, you don't want their regulatory problems falling on your table. So that's been now another reason why people are a little wary to come together, because you don't know the financials and the compliance checks, etc. But certainly I agree with you that if people come together in whichever field, whether for-profit, non-profit, somehow, you have strength in numbers. But I don't think that happens either in the for-profit world or the non-profit world. It's not like it happens in the for-profit world, in the tech space. They want to chew up each other, right? They're not just a shark eat shark world.
But I think in for-profit world, more than the for-profit world, it is required in non-profit world.
I agree with you.
Yeah, because there are challenges, financial challenges, implementation challenges. So do you think that this idea of synergy is just a fancy word on paper, or it is really practically possible, or may have happened somewhere around the world?
No, it has happened in many places. It also depends on your cultural, context, and it also depends on what is the space that you're working in. I'll give you an example. Now in India, like suppose many of the big organizations who are based out of your metros, they don't actually have a network which goes into the rural, tribal, off-grid areas. So they partner with local partners. So you look at any of your big organizations, right? Those working in the environment, those working in gender, any of your big international organizations, all of them have local partners in every state. Now, whether the local partners itself have more partners is a question. Some of them do, like in the education space, some of them do partner because, I'm in one state, somebody else is in another state, they come together. For me, as a non-profit, we have had no partnerships, I must tell you. I've pretty much worked on my own because I felt that was the most comfortable for me. I've always been happy to share my ideas, and I've said, you want to do it, go ahead and do it in your space or your state or your area, or you can do it in my area also, because there's enough work that has to be done and it's not like that. But everybody has a different style of functioning. Some fits are a good fit and some aren't. So I have pretty much done my things not in collaboration with other non-profits, but more in collaboration with other tech people. Because I felt that was more beneficial for us as a non-profit and in terms of our project implementation. So that really, it works on a case-to-case basis. Sometimes one works better with a larger group of people if you think that will serve a purpose, but sometimes it doesn't work. So there's no like one rule fits all kind of formula that one can come up with.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So, ma'am, being conscious of time, I would like to open the lines for our participants if they have any questions. So, Chakradhar and Sai, you can just open the line for the participants. And participants, if you want to speak to ma'am, you can speak directly, or you can write to me. I can ask questions on your behalf. So Yeah, so ma'am, while the participants are gearing up, uh, another question is that how do you see the trend? Because we are a country, we definitely need lots of, uh, we have lots of social issues to be resolved. And
Yes,
I think so that we are talented enough to solve on our own.
yes,
We do not need
yes,
any foreign intervention, but it's just
yes.
that creating an awareness. So how do you see the trend? Are we moving ahead in a right path, or we are still pretty much slow and need somebody to, just pull the strings?
No, no, I definitely feel that we have made a huge amount of progress. After all, you look at the number of people who were in poverty in 1947 and you look at the numbers today, you look at the life expectancy, you look at the rate of malnutrition, you look at the number of girls who started to enroll into school, you look at the kind of, so the various social development indexes that one can look at to say a huge amount of progress has been made. Now, is that enough? Can we just sit and pat ourselves on the back? Certainly not, because the truth is there's still a wide amount of income disparity that is there today in India. There's still a whole generation that sleeps empty stomach, that has problem accessing basic human needs like water, sanitation, basic health care, food, schooling, things that many of us in the bigger cities take for granted. So this is where I think that, with the advancement of technology, perfect example of that is your direct benefit transfer, where now everybody has a bank account, or at least a large part of the population has bank accounts. You have started banking the unbanked. You directly give them the money that they deserve. You cut out the middleman. You ensure there's transparency. So there's the use of technology to scale up change and impact and ensure that there is at least less corruption.
Yeah.
More transparency. So is there enough that we've done? And there's always more that we can do. But are we doing stuff? I would say a lot of stuff is happening. The fact that people are even talking about water and sanitation, to me itself is a big step ahead, because sanitation has also the implication of caste and the caste reality. Because in India, if you talk about development, you can't leave out caste. It is the truth. And many people, or most people who are in the conversation, are people from the upper caste. So you don't even understand the trauma that a person from a lower caste has gone through, and the social injustice that they and their families have faced over generations. So these are still conversations that are going to carry on for some time. I don't think it's going to be over so soon.
Yeah, but at least you are right in one thing, that at least we all are talking about it, and people are conscious about it. Even in their limited scenario, they may not be able to create any impact, but if we are talking to one another, at least we are spreading the awareness. So that's a good thing.
Little drops.
Yes, yeah. Sai, I guess you said you have some questions, so please go ahead.
Yeah, sir. Sanchayita ji. So, I just want to ask, what are the, opportunities in Sana Foundations for the young generations? So, how can they contribute in Sana Foundation?
So, well, in Sana, actually, pretty much what we do is on autopilot, because now it's been some amount of time. But usually where we involve younger people is when we do our surveys. So when we do like a social impact survey, when we have a set of questions that we have, which we want them to go and, find out for us, or we do case studies, we want them to document the changes that have taken place. And then, of course, we're starting a new project on agriculture and the use of technology in the agricultural sector. And once that project is off the ground and we're in it, there I will certainly need more young people to have to learn to get their hands and feet dirty and roll up their sleeves and work with us. So then I will have opportunities, I will reach out.
Thank you. Because, a lot of youngsters, they, after graduation, they have a lot of technology, with them, but, they don't know where to implement all these things. So I think this is a great platform. We can do something for the society.
Why not? Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you, Sana. Thank you for joining with us, and thank you for accepting our invitation.
And congratulations for young people to also come. So
Thank
I think we need a round of applause for you and your colleague.